Okay, I would like to call to order the Tuesday, July 18th, 2023 Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. Can we all please stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I don't have any announcements this evening. Is there anybody here for anything that's not currently posted on our agenda? Seeing as none, we'll go into the 7 o'clock public hearing for a poll petition, 470 Northeast Main Street, and possible votes. Take a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Do you care to second that?
Second.
Made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we have a poll petition plan number 307-59091 for 470 Northeast Main Street. Do we have anybody here to speak on this? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Michael Parent. I work for National Grid out of the Hopedale office. This petition is for the pole that's going to provide service to the buildings at that address. Seems to be a pretty large project. They have to extend one of the feeders to get all the way out there. And I guess there's going to be a few buildings there, 3 buildings, something of that nature. So it's very deep in there. I have a plan for it. A large amount underground from that pole back into the property. So this will provide service for all the buildings there.
And Lisa, has there been any notice from any of the abutters?
No, notice was sent out, certified mail. I haven't heard any feedback from any abutters.
Okay. And Mr. Furno asked that the pole be a minimum of 3 feet away from the edge of the roadway. And we have nothing from, seems like all the other departments have no issues with it. Anybody have any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing for the poll petition at 470 Northeast Main Street.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I'll entertain a motion on the poll petition itself.
Make a motion to approve the poll petition as requested for 470 Northeast Main Street.
Okay, we have a motion. Anyone care to second?
I'll second.
Made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You're all set.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
All right. Oh. In theory, I have to wait until 7:15 for the second public hearing.
I didn't know how long that.
No, that's fair. I completely understand. While we're waiting,
We can do our minutes.
yeah, let's go over the minutes while we're waiting.
Pay attention to that.
Yeah, all right.
Has everybody had a chance on the June 20th meeting minutes? You all set on those, Russ?
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the June 20th, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
I'll second it. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All abstain. Matt, it's nice to see some executive session minutes here. Are we retaining all, or are these being released for the public?
So Rich still has his work to do. From what I recall the discussion being during some of these sessions, there may be partial redactions because of personnel matters, but any matters that may relate to strategy and discussion or policy considerations that go into a conclusion would unlikely be redacted, because those are, once the matter is concluded, they would be open for discussion, or open for publication. So maybe I'm listening to myself, I'm not being as clear as I want to be. If there is a topic that specifically addresses the evaluation, retention, recruitment of an employee, a specific employee, and it goes to those issues, it is a confidential record forever, and that is pretty much the rule. But to the extent that the board considers its options for employment relationships, those policy considerations are unlikely to be redacted. Does that answer your question, Selectman Bowen?
Yeah, I don't see a lot of that in particular within these minutes.
So when it comes to real estate, to the extent that you discuss strategy or your considerations that go into it, after, for whatever reason that real estate is in front of you, if it's a 61, for instance, once the period runs and the transaction is completed, the minutes would be disclosed. If it is still a pending matter where there's strategy involved, it would be withheld. So that would be real estate. So we've covered personnel, real estate. In matters of litigation, I think you can pretty much expect those to always be retained, unless and until there is a final judgment on a case and all appeal periods have run.
Could you look at that and tell me if those would be retained or not?
What's under?
What I underlined?
That would be retained.
Okay, thank you.
For the purposes of my understanding, what are you looking at?
Yep.
Any discussion of an employee's health condition?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the 17th, 7th, and, well, January 17th, February 7th, and March 7th, Ross and Max would have to abstain from those votes. Chief?
Mr. Chairman?
Just for clarity, Tim, were you suggesting that we consider releasing some of these particular 3 minutes this evening? The only reason I ask that is because I myself would prefer to have Rich Bowen weigh in on it to make sure that we can release whatever we're releasing.
But you could vote to
Approve
ask
the minutes.
the attorney to expedite his review of the minutes that you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. And I would make a motion that we approve the January 17th, the February 7th, and the March 7th minutes, retaining all, with a ask of our council to retain what is necessary and release what is not.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We're done with minutes and 3 minutes to go.
Seeing the chief is here, can we just tackle number 4?
Is that 715 only for item 2, or is it for everything under it?
No, it's just for.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Any objection to that?
No?
And they're here. I don't-
Well, actually,
Butter.
the chief may be here for number 3 as well.
All
3
right.
and 4.
Yes.
So do we want to,
Recuse on 5, why don't you just do 5?
oh,
Yeah, do
vote on
five, and I'll leave.
61B Walnut Street, Lot 2?
I'm going to recuse myself.
All right.
Jump over.
Matt, is it appropriate when we do recuse to explain why we're recusing?
Because I'm currently working with the property owner, and I think it would be improper for me to participate.
Perfect. Just let people know, that's all.
So, but, Mr. Chairman, to answer Selectman Bourne's question, so there's a process that you follow to recuse yourself from a vote. One is that you have to file a form with the clerk and with Lisa that explains that there is at least the appearance of a conflict of interest, and explains the reason for that. Then the board would have that, really should have that in the packet before the vote, so you understand one of your members. And then the Ethics Commission would opine as to whether or not that person should recuse themselves or not. And the explanation can be as cursory as it just was from the vice chairman, which is, he has some business interest that may be implicated. In this case, it's an abundance of caution. And then the proper, this isn't always followed, we got to get used to it, not so much with this board, but with some of our other boards, the proper method of recusal is to leave the room while an issue is being discussed. So not just the vote, but the discussion, the entire.
Thank you, Mr. Wojcik. All right, so we have the complete notice of intent for the conversion of 2.7 acres, well, 2.07 acres of land located at 52 Walnut Street, Lot 2, which was reviewed and discussed in executive session on July 5th. The following boards and commissions have reviewed and discussed. Their recommendations are included in the packet as well. Planning met on 5/25. They voted for us to not exercise our right of first refusal. Concom on 5/8 also voted for the town not to exercise our right of first refusal. Open Space Commission, similar to the previous 2 votes, they met on 5/9, voted for us to not exercise our right of first refusal. Recreation also voted for us not to exercise our right of first refusal. They met on 6/20, and the assessors met on 5/17, and they had no issues or concerns. And we actually have a draft motion that's in there. Does anybody have any questions or wants me to read off the draft motion, or have you guys had a chance to look at it?
I've had a chance to look at it.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen to vote not to exercise the town's right of first refusal for 2.07 acres of land located at 52 Walnut Street, Lot 2, joining our colleagues on the various committees.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Welcome back, Mr. Vice Chairman.
You miss me?
Tons. Did you enjoy your stint in the hall?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have another public hearing for a one-day entertainment license for Picnic in the Park at Martin Road and possible votes. I'd entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Good evening. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Excellent.
I'm Rhoda Hendrickson. I'm putting on the picnic at the park.
Excellent. Tell me a little bit about it.
It's going to be geared sensory-friendly event. Mainly like autistic kids suffer from sensory sensitivities. Some seniors as well. So it'll be just a low-key picnic-style lunch, yard games, bubbles, face painting. A balloon animal lady's going to come and do that for the kids.
Nice.
I rented, it's called Giant Jenga, Giant Connect 4, and a cornhole game. Just yard games for the kids just to have fun.
Excellent.
I wanted to do music, that's the license for it, but not loud music. It's just going to be like DVDs on the radio, kind of like jazz, blues, instrumental stuff just for like background noise, because silence is actually very loud to kids with sensory issues. So that'll help break the silence. We have the Mr. Ice Guys in Treats, the ice cream truck. He's going to come down. Although I had a last-minute idea of asking the fire department to join, do their grilling, but I don't think there's enough time for that, right?
I don't know, you'd have to speak with them about it.
My understanding is the ladder truck's going to come,
Oh,
one
okay.
of the ambulances.
Oh, all right, okay.
Like a truck type of thing,
Oh, awesome. Okay, I didn't know that. All right, that's good.
and no sirens out there.
Yes, no sirens. Well, they do their sensory day up at the fire station as well, so they're familiar with what it is. All right, awesome. So, and if I can't ask the fire department, because I'm giving them very short notice, could I ask another food truck to come? And if not, it's not a big deal, it was just a last-minute idea.
I don't see any.
Do they have to be
Through
registered
Board
with
of
the,
Health Would have to,
Oh, okay,
yeah, you want to talk to the Board of Health.
okay,
Anything food-related,
okay,
food trucks.
all right. Do I have to come back to you guys for approval, or would I
You
just?
don't do hawkers and vendors in Massachusetts?
But I think it's through
Is it-
the Board of Health.
yeah.
I can check with
They
them.
approve the
They
individual
approve the
vendors.
vendor, but the actual to be on town property, that's not you.
I don't think so.
I'm not sure. Haven't had any experience with them yet.
Might be a little bit late this time.
Yeah, that's fine.
But we should have our story completely
Okay.
set.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to inquire, we can find out by.
Yeah, I can ask in the morning.
Okay, all right.
But if it requires this board's approval, then
We don't have time yet, that's fine. It was a last-minute idea.
There's been ice cream trucks selling ice cream down at Soldiers Field with no town approval. I would urge common sense there. The one concern I would have is we do that is the trash and the trash pickup. I know we talked about that on the rec commission.
Yes.
Add another hot dog truck or something, there might be an increase in trash just to be aware of.
Okay, I have a pass to the transfer station. I don't mind bringing extra if
Yeah.
it becomes to be too much. Because I saw one recycle bin down there. So if it gets crazy, I'll take it home.
That's fair.
Lisa, quick question. I see a check here for $10. Has that been deposited?
Yes, it has.
It has, okay.
Any other questions?
No, sounds like a good idea.
We want to make a motion to close the public hearing.
I can do that. Make a motion to close the public hearing for the one-day entertainment license at Picnic on Martin Park.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'll entertain a motion on the license.
I'll motion to approve the one-day entertainment license for the picnic in the park at Martin Road Park.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Awesome.
So,
Thank you, guys.
good luck with the event.
That's ready to be picked up.
Okay, all right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Hopefully. Take care.
Okay. So we have a follow-up discussion on door-to-door solicitation and possible votes. You here for that, Chief?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
So this is the bylaw that was presented, was it 2019 or 20? Remember?
18, I think.
18?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
one of the-
18.
yeah, it
Okay.
feels like it was 18.
It was presented then at town meeting, and it didn't pass. And this was something at the time the police department supported then, and it's something that we would support again if you, as a board, choose to put it before the voters again. For us, it gives us a little more teeth to get information on who's coming in to solicit. It also gives the residents an opportunity to sign up with the clerk's office if they don't want solicitors to come to their house. So there would be a permitting process, and there would be a list of where they can go and where, you know, they shouldn't be going, that they can get through the clerk's office. It would set parameters on hours. I think we have 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. in there. We do get a lot of calls when solicitors come into town, and a lot of times they will call and see what we have for a process. Right now, we don't have any real official process. So when the solicitors come in, whether it be a solar company or whatever, if they don't check in with the PD and we get calls for suspicious people or the solicitors themselves, we'll go out and we'll just ask them to come into the PD if they're gonna come back the next day, give us the registrations to your cars, let us know what neighborhood you're gonna be in, so, you know, we can answer the calls appropriately. But at this point, I mean, we can ask them to do that. There's nothing that
Forces them to do it.
forces them to do that, and there's some penalties with this if you don't follow it. Some companies are more aggressive than others. I mean, I've seen issues where people have no solicitation signs on their property, and yet they'll still go there. This will give us an opportunity if, you know, we do create this bylaw, we do have a list that they have to get through the clerk's office. Once they get their permit, they have to come in beforehand, you know, apply with us. We can vet them, we can make clear to them, you know, what our expectations are, and if they don't follow those, there's some penalties, up to, you know, $100 fine to revoking their permit. So, I think it's a good bylaw. I thought it was a good bylaw then. I still think it's good as written. I mean, we may want to send it off to Rich and have him take another look at it, but it's certainly something we would support.
Do you recall what the struggle was, why it didn't pass the first time?
You know, I think a question came up, the conversation started about religious groups and Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, and I think that the actual, you know, concept of the bylaw got off topic a little bit, because it's clearly in the bylaw that this is for salespeople only.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be vetting, you know, religious groups that are going out for one reason or another, or Boy Scouts, Girl
Politicians.
Scouts, politicians,
Yeah,
you know, recreational groups, sports groups, you know, any organization that involves. This is strictly for salespeople, people that are out trying to sell something and make a profit, or, you know, gather business. Any other groups, it wouldn't. And what happened when that got brought up, like I said, I think it just
It went sideways.
took another angle, and the ultimate decision was not to move it forward, but.
There was the fear that somebody was not going to get Girl Scout cookies, and that ended it.
16.5, number C, letter C, actually exempts them from this. It's right here. Religious groups, any group serving youths under 17 years of age. So they're all protected in this. It's just, for whatever reason, probably didn't get put forward. Talking to Matt when last month or something like that, there was, the Oktoberfest maybe was concerned about this. Is there a way of including that in for a local organized event?
Well, I think it actually did fit under one of those exemptions, or you could make it fit under those exemptions.
I remember the town meeting because it did go sideways.
It did go
Like
sideways.
fast.
Nobody answered the question fast enough, and it created enough doubt in people's minds
Right.
where they didn't want to vote it. We have time, obviously, between now and November. So if the view is that the language isn't explicit enough, because we don't want to hurt Oktoberfest in any
Right.
way, then we'll work with council to draft another subsection to accommodate that. I didn't think it implicated them at all, because it's a community event. It's not for profit. So,
It's actually a pretty simple bylaw. They register it, and if you don't want to, if you want to participate, have them come to your door, you just don't register. It's
But you
really
don't,
simple.
in reality, we don't have issues with local organizations. So you're not going to get complaints on local organizations. You might get a couple questions about, what they're doing. Is it, did they check in? I mean, do they have the town's permission? Small local organizations, kids, town organizations, going door to door, trying to do something for the community, that's not where you get your
Right.
issues. Where you get your issues is with people trying to sell a product for profit. That's how they're making their living, that's how they're making their money. They come in, you can ask them to, okay, can you finish up by 7? Next thing you know, you're getting a call at 9 o'clock, it's dark, someone's knocking on their door. That's what this is for. Anybody else that, we can work with, local organizations are going to be, not held to the standard that these people are going to be held to.
I mean, I support making another run at town meeting to get this through. I think it's a good bylaw.
Yeah.
And we'll be prepared for the Boy Scout questions this time.
Yeah, like I said, I think maybe we didn't explain it as well as we could have when that came up, but there is certainly, if you read it and we go through and we get it in the flyer and we get the point across that it's just going to be for solicitors only, salespeople, I think we'll have a better chance.
So, as far as a motion, you're looking for a motion to move forward in putting this on the town warrant, or what kind of motion are you looking for?
I don't think we really need a motion at this time, do we, Matt?
Well, it says possible votes. Do you need anything, or is it just a
if you wanted to
discussion?
direct any activity, it would probably be best that you had a vote. So if you want us to run this by Attorney Bowen to make sure that Oktoberfest is clearly not within the scope of the bylaw, and have that opinion generated for you, so that when you do vote to put it on the warrant, you'd have that information.
Works. Anybody care to make a motion as to have Attorney Bowen review to ensure it does no harm to local committees?
I'm just thinking if that's the only thing that we need the motion on. So I guess I would make a motion to have the town administrator explore this proposed bylaw for door-to-door solicitation, to discuss it with town council to make sure that we don't prohibit local organizations from being affected by this, or have local organizations being affected by this.
I'll second.
Okay.
Glad you know what I said, because I got confused.
I was following. You were doing
Were
good.
you?
Yeah.
All right, good.
So, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing is none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So we have a follow-up discussion on the Route 16 speed limit review and possible votes. We have Mr. Furno here as well. You want to come up too, John?
So this is a follow-up, Mr. Chairman, to, I believe, an email you got from a resident around this time last year. And he put together a document, and he did a very good job on it. He makes a compelling argument for that section of road that he's talking about as far as being a thickly settled area. However, the problem is this needs to be, I sent this into DOT, and I didn't get any response back. So I'm going to follow up with them, because ultimately it's their decision. I watched your last meeting, and town administrator did a great job explaining to you the 85th percentile problem with DOT. Same thing, we ran into the problem with Northwest Main Street. People want the speed limit lowered, but they come out and they follow a formula called the 85th percentile. So regardless of what the speed limit is, if it's posted 30, they could come out and watch traffic, count the cars. If 85% of the cars are doing 40 miles per hour, they may say that, per the 85th percentile formula, that speed limit, right, that's 30 right now, should go up to 40. So it's a double-edged sword, but it's a lot of data. But just to give you an idea, last year we, in the area of 33 Main Street, we did eastbound and westbound traffic with our speed trailer. 40 miles per hour posted, the 50th percentile speed was 37.43, and the 85th percentile was 41.18. So they are right around, the majority of the traffic is right around that 40 mile per hour speed limit. Same thing westbound, speed limit 40. Westbound was, the average speed was 37.45, and then the 85th percentile was 41.26. And that's on an average volume per day is about 3,771 cars. So we were able to pull that data with our speed trailer. The question here is, should that area between, that this gentleman was asking, should that area between 28 and 56 be posted a thickly settled? And I think that's going to be a decision for DOT to make. What I have to do is reach out to them again, and I don't know if our area rep has changed, because when I reached out to her in the past, she usually got back to me right away. So I'm going to have to make some phone calls to follow up to see if they can come out and do that. But in the meantime, if you agree to it, I'd like to get some more data for that area, put the trailer out again. This data is a year old from last year when we originally got the complaint. I can put it out again between 28 and 56, get updated data, and hopefully get an answer from DOT to see if they'll come out and look at that specific area. And I know we've had, some conversation that came up. We had a couple of crashes in that area. Mr. Wojcik mentioned the one we had with the oil truck was certainly inattention. It was the operator coming the other way that hit the gas truck was at fault. We had two other major accidents there, and both of them were attributed to a medical condition prior to the crash. So speed wasn't a factor in either one of those crashes. And because a lot of times where that area is tight and confined and there's that corner and the road is not that wide, visually, if you stand there and watch the cars, and even if you did it and we put the speed trailer out there, you'll see a car coming and it looks like it's going a lot faster than it actually is. But when you check the speed, it's really within that 40 mile per hour speed limit, usually between 35 and 40. But they do look like they're going faster, and bigger vehicles, box trucks, tractor trailer trucks, they do look like they're going faster than they actually are. So that would be my recommendation. Let me get some more data. Let me try and get some answers from DOT, get them out here to take a look at it. That area specifically, based on, the thickly settled.
Works for me.
Agree with that?
Yeah, there was a recent inquiry from the gentleman that sent all this in. So that's what prompted this coming back up on the discussion.
And like I said, he did do a great job putting things together. He mapped it out, spaced it out, but it's certainly, even as highway commissioners, it doesn't give us, we had to go through the channels at DOT before. We can't just put up speed signs, and change them.
The Commonwealth wants it to say as well.
Yeah.
Chief, before we pursue DOT, is it better to know the answer to the question, the 85% question, before we approach them?
Yeah, well, I think that's why I want to double check the data. Again, I want to run another series of a couple weeks on each side. So here, I think we're good because the average speed in the 85th percentile was about 41. So they're not going to, right now it's posted 40. So if that came back, the same thing, and they did theirs, and it's 41, they're going to keep it at 40. I don't think they would make the change. What this gentleman is asking here is, and what he put together is between 2856, he believes it should be a thickly settled area based on the law of what defines thickly settled. And like I said, I looked at it, and he makes a pretty compelling argument. Whether they'll make it, whether DOT will buy that argument and make it a thickly settled based on, they take everything into consideration. You're looking at Route 16, which is, a major road, and now you're going to come to this one section and, make it 30 from a 40. They may do it, but that's what they do. That's their, that's what they do professionally, so we'll let them take a look at it.
Works for me.
Chief?
Sounds good.
How long would it take you to put that, to do that evaluation?
Well, I want to get at least a week or two of, I could probably have it for your next meeting, if not the next
Yeah,
meeting.
but should we put it out like a month out, though?
Yeah, put it a month out.
Put it a
Yeah,
month out.
because we usually put it out
So you get some.
a week or
update
two,
on it.
like 10 days each side, eastbound, westbound.
Yeah.
That gives us 10 days of data. And hopefully if not the next meeting, the meeting after that, I'll get some response from DOT and get a definitive answer one way or the other.
Yeah, we'll shoot for the second meeting in August.
Yeah.
That should give you a pretty good window.
Yeah.
Perfect, thanks.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Good night.
All right.
Yep.
Have a good night, guys. All right, so we're on to number 6. Zoning Board of Appeals reappointment amendment for Michael Fitzpatrick from alternate member to full member. Impossible vote.
So where the confusion came in is I was under the impression that I could go to an alternate member, and then once we got more members on there, I could, like,
Sidestep.
depart. But then, in Lisa's diligence, she sent me a letter that said that I was sentenced until 2026 anyway, so I might as well just be a regular member if that's the case. So
You get a bonus for
whatever
that.
the board wants to do with it is fine with me.
Would you prefer to be a regular member or an
Well,
alternate?
it'd probably be better for the board if I was a regular member if I'm gonna be there.
I would entertain a motion to change your status from alternate to regular member of zoning.
Just a quick point of order, we typically get word from the committee as to whether they support that. I know you've been.
Yeah, that's fine.
Has that question been asked? I didn't see that in our packet.
What the board's opinion is from the chairman or anybody.
Right.
There wasn't any. You are the appointing board for that committee.
Even the,
I don't even
no,
think.
that's fine. I'll make a motion that we appoint Mike to the full member of the ZBA. You're right, Lisa. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Just to answer that, Tim, our last meeting on the zoning got canceled because it was on the same night as this meeting on the 5th. They didn't have a quorum, so it got canceled, so they don't even know that I was an alternate, unless they watch this meeting.
Now, if it's a new member coming in, that's when
That's
we
when they
get
do
the, recommendation from the members.
So we have a motion, and was it seconded?
Yes.
All right, made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, other than you do not get to change again, that's it.
What happens, I get thrown off?
You get a new letter.
It's like an unsuccessful petition. Yeah. You gotta wait 2 years before you can bring it back.
I'm trying to find what all the rules are, that's all.
I'll email it to you.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. So we have the grant acceptance for the Fire Department MEMA Hazard Mitigation Plan Update Program and possible votes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the town has a grant from MEMA for $27,000 to revisit its hazard mitigation plan within roughly a year of its renewal date. MEMA contracts with a professional services firm to administer this. That would be Ty and Bond or a similar engineering firm. It's usually Ty and Bond. We will have committee meetings. We will go through the process of identifying those hazards and categorizing hazards based on their severity and their likelihood. And then after you go through that exercise, you begin to put into place possible mitigation measures to reduce the town's risk of exposure to those threats. We have done this process once. We need to review this every several years and renew it. By keeping this plan current, it makes us eligible for additional grant activity to pay for the mitigation measures. But that's a condition precedent that you have to have in place. I believe we have a committee that's been named. I'm not sure which board member got, I think it was the chairman.
You were absent.
Because you were absent, so you got you drew the short straw. And
When they
you had-
said hazard, your name came to mind, so.
That tends to happen a lot.
We'll go over this in my report, but I think as we progress with different climate issues, stormwater management issues, and the increasing population and activity level in town, the way we categorize certain hazards might be changing, so we need to think it through. But it's free money, there's no match. If there's a match, it's our time, and it's not a monetary match.
Okay. I care to make a motion on this.
Grant acceptance.
I'll motion to accept the grant for the fire department MEMA hazard mitigation plan program
Throw the amount in there, too.
for $27,000.
Excellent.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, so we're going to review the MOU for firefighters union pay rate amendment and possible votes.
Mr. Chairman, as a result of compensation reform that was approved by town meeting, we created a new chart for call firefighters and their rates of pay, and it is driven entirely by skill levels and qualifications. And in going through that exercise and trying to keep a specific set of mathematical rules in place for the gap between full-time and call, we learned through application of that formula that we would have to give a raise to our firefighters who are not medics, who have an EMT basic certification, because in keeping the algorithm in place, we would be paying call substantially more than we're paying our full-time. So this is something that we've discussed at quite some length with the union over the course of the last year since we started the comp reform effort, and it's an amendment to the contract that will take place effective July 1. I think in the backup, you have the MOU, and so that rate will go up from $18.02 at step one to a step one rate of $21.32.
So that's bringing everyone up to step one at 2132 regardless. I thought we were looking to correct.
So this is, it specifically affects 2 employees. So their full-time contract rate would be significantly lower than the call firefighter rate that was approved by town meeting. That was not the intention. The intention was to have our full-time rates somewhere between 10 and 15% higher than the call rates, because the commitment level and documentation and other things are higher. So this would affect 2 or 3 employees' hourly rate. And 2 of them, they're not even step 1, right? They're step 3? Yes.
So it's correcting a problem before it's a problem.
Correct.
Makes sense to me.
And I know we discussed these topics ad nauseum, so not everybody may remember, but this was flagged from the very beginning. This was something that we would have to do. And we went to the union and asked them. Asking the union to accept a raise is not hard, right? So,
If it was, I'd be concerned.
yeah, well, it's happened. We won't get into it.
Make a motion for the pay rate amendment to the MOU for the firefighters union.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
All right.
All right. So, approval for temporary rate of compensation for certain call firefighters and EMS personnel and possible votes.
So, Mr. Chairman, I hope members have had a chance to review my memo on this one. If the chief would give me a hand on this one, I appreciate it. When comp reform was suggested for the call, fire, and EMTs, we did the chart by comparing rates of pay for full-time versus call at step 1. And in the course of publishing documents to show where the rates were, I made a notation on the bottom of one of those charts that those rates were step 1 rates for fiscal '24, and that we would start everybody off at that rate. And that was an early draft. After we shopped that early draft to the call firefighters for their review and conversation with the then chief and the deputy chief and the assistant chief and others that were involved in the discussion, the application of that strict step 1 standard was not feasible. We needed to blow out those rates of pay to all the way up to step 5. And the step for call isn't driven by longevity or the time of service. It's driven by qualifications. So it's not tied to the years of service, but you could become a step 5 call lieutenant if you had a dive certification and you had come to more than 50% of calls and keeping up with a level of skills that was somewhat significantly higher than your step 1 hire. We had that conversation to adjust those rates because we didn't want anybody to get a pay cut as a result of comp reform. That was totally not the purpose of comp reform, was to bring everybody up. So I changed the table and I added up to step 5, and I did not delete the note underneath the chart. I left that note, all pay rates will be step 1 for fiscal '24. That got published, when the chart was copied and pasted into the warrant, that got published in the warrant. And the town accountant correctly points out that the words that are published in the warrant are the words that bind you. So unless we have another way to make a change. Obviously, we cannot cut the pay of call firefighters at the specific point we're at right now in terms of recruiting people to come to the fire ground. So under the Town Administrator Act and the personnel policies and procedures of the Town of Douglas, the relevant language is, the Town Administrator, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, may establish temporary classifications and compensation for positions when needed. We have these 6 employees that, in order to maintain their participation as call firefighters and medics, need to be at these rates of pay. We will come to November town meeting with the appropriate edits. What we're finding is competition for any paramedic, whether they're part-time, per diem, or full-time, is vicious. And the rates that are being paid by private ambulance services and some other full-time departments around the Commonwealth far exceed Douglas's. So we're going to, instead of having that nice, neat mathematical algorithm that drove the whole thing, we're going to have to go back to an earlier practice, which was to have hourly rates for medics set substantially higher. So this predominantly affects these people, and I can tell you, just eyeballing the names, these are medics.
Yeah,
Almost
these are
all
all paramedics, yeah.
are all
Per diem paramedics.
per diem paramedics, without whom we would struggle mightily to run this department at the ALS level of service.
That's what I was going to say, is that medics are absolutely required for us to keep ALS.
That's correct.
The temporary rate of compensation doesn't affect the budget at all?
No, because we, notwithstanding a little note in the fine print in the chart, I had increased the budget for call by 7.5%. So it took into consideration the increase in the rates of pay, using historical averages of the number of calls and the number of hours worked. So this would be, it would take effect July 1, and I would ask that your motion reflect that these rates of pay would, if you approve it, would be
Retroactive.
effective July 1 until town meeting has the opportunity to consider the issue in November.
Knowing the importance of our call fire department and team, I would gladly make a motion that we approve the temporary rate for compensation as presented tonight for the certain call firefighters and EMS personnel, effective backdated to July 1, 2023.
I'll second that.
Just for a question, that would stay in effect until fall town meeting?
Correct.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
I'd like to thank the board for the help with the cleanup. It's people, it's important to them. So.
Yes.
It's,
You can mess with a lot, but not somebody's pay.
Well, we changed the way 9 people approached the town with those 2 votes, so thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
All right, so we've already done the minutes. So we have a discussion on flag policies for town buildings and possible votes. And we have a copy of Dedham's policy.
I think you do. I think we've talked about this before. This was Rich Bowen's suggestion as a template that you may choose to follow. There may be some language that you would want to keep or language you want to strike. Getting back to the main theme, just because it doesn't hurt to say things more than once. There have been any number of court decisions at a very high level that the best thing that you cannot discriminate on the basis of content or message. The display of a political item or a flag on a public building in the absence of a policy. And a lot of times people will say, well, my cause has a great deal of support, and I'd like to celebrate my cause by putting the flag up. And a lot of municipal officials will say, well, that's great because we support your cause and we want to be public about it. The problem with it is that regulations need to be content neutral. So if you have a group, if you decide you're going to fly a certain flag, and then you have a group that says, we hate everybody who's in that group, and because you let them fly their flag, you have to let us fly ours, because you're supposed to be content neutral. That is actually the rule. Okay, so we have been directed by the courts that if you want to maintain your content neutrality and not get into these disputes with civic associations and other groups, the policy you have to have in place has to be that you fly official flags of the United States, of the Commonwealth, the town where you're at, as a force for unified conversation around what the country stands for in the state, and not get into this policy of letting certain people fly a flag or not fly a flag. People of a certain ethnic, this is a good example because it's less relevant right now, but at one point we have people who maybe have emigrated from the Russian Federation, and people who may have emigrated here from the Ukraine. At the present time, if you're of Ukrainian descent, seeing a Russian flag flying at Town Hall would not be a welcome sign, and vice versa. And so, you may want to celebrate people from that ethnic heritage, but you forego that opportunity to do that because right now you'd be almost look like you're taking a side in what is a contest that's claimed thousands of lives. So we navigate through that by simply saying the flag we're going to fly is the flag of the United States. I think that's what Dedham's policy pretty much sets out. I know there's been some commentary, we want this policy to apply to all town buildings. I happen to be of that mindset, that if the town owns it, this policy would apply to all town buildings. Water and sewer, library, school department, notwithstanding a board of trustees or a degree of administrative independence, the fact is all those buildings are under the dominion of the town, and the select board sets policy for the whole town.
I think it makes sense because it puts us in a neutral position. Like whatever the current cause of the week is, there's usually a flag that comes along with it. And it's not the town's responsibility to either endorse or deny either side of it. We're supposed to have net neutrality. I think that putting a policy forward that says we fly the American flag, the Douglas town flag, or the Commonwealth's flag, and that's it, seems to make the most sense.
Would that also encompass town property that doesn't have a building?
Yes.
Any
So
flagpole.
there's something you may want to, what's that?
Any flagpole.
Yeah, well, we're talking about all town buildings, that's why I was just asking that. So if you get into a cemetery or something like that, that's
Right.
what came to mind.
Cemeteries, highway squares, all our islands,
Yeah.
West Street, Manchog, Mechanic, all.
So maybe it should say town property instead of town buildings, or?
So I think what we're looking for here is guidance from the board. We would take, if you liked this template, we would remove the word Dedham, insert the word Douglas, and look for any other provision that needs to be tweaked to be specific to Douglas.
Yeah.
For your
Actually,
for your final
the
act.
first sentence does say
Covers property.
property.
Yeah, this would be a policy, so I think it would need 3 readings.
That's a good basis to go by.
So what would you prefer? You prefer us to mark this up and give it to you?
That would be good.
And then we can talk about it at the next meeting?
If you don't mark it up, I'll mark it up and
Yeah.
at least get you a draft.
Right.
So with 3 readings, you have 3 meetings to review the words and decide what you want to do with it.
So I'll make a motion that we instruct the town administrator to create a Douglas-specific flag policy for town buildings, town property, and any and all town flagpoles to begin the 3-reading process.
I'll second.
Excellent. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Brings us to your report, Mr. Administrator.
I've tried my best to be brief, as I always try, and I don't always succeed, but I'm sure the topic that's on everyone's mind is there's water everywhere, and really, we've experienced an extraordinary amount of precipitation coming in very large quantities over a very short period of time. And all of our problem spots around town have been experiencing this, but really virtually any place where people have altered the ground by removing forested soil or removing soil or vegetation, we're getting these runoff issues. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think either the state's laws or policies or our town laws and policies are keeping pace with the pressure that's being put on us to accommodate these things. So we're following default rules, and I'm saying all this in my report by way of trying to get the public up to speed. Our primary responsibility is to make the roads safe, and that means taking water where people may hydroplane managing that water to be off the roadway surface, and then managing it so that it doesn't damage anybody's property. But within the town's right-of-way, the town has significant authority and responsibility to manage its water. So as we go forward, in particular, South Street is a pretty significant engineering and pavement project, which involves a lot of stormwater management. And the primary problem with many of the roads in Douglas that have not been maintained for a long time is that we've lost the crown. So now the roadway, instead of having the water run off to the two sides, now that you have dips and you may even
Not
have
shedding,
ruts
it's
created by
collecting.
heavy trucks, we're funneling the water and channeling it, and then as soon as it hits anything it doesn't want to go over, it wants to go around, it's going onto somebody's property, and maybe thousands of gallons of water by the time you get to the bottom of a hill. There are going to be times, and when we feel like these issues are coming up, you as roadway commissioners will be presented with the plans for your vote. Because ultimately, we don't want appointed staff making these decisions. You have to make these decisions. When we finally get to a point, we may have to make trade-offs. We may have to allow a certain amount of water to bleed off the roadway at the top of the hill so that we don't have an unmanageable problem by the time we get to the bottom. And the folks at the top of the hill may not necessarily think that's the best plan. But if we do all the work within the town's right-of-way, and we are only fixing existing structures, so if we're fixing a 12-inch pipe where there is a 12-inch pipe, or cleaning out a 12-inch pipe where it's supposed to be, and it has been for years, those are prerogatives that the highway commissioners in the town has that are quite different from if we were building something new and having a large outfall someplace on somebody's private property. We have been through that. The town of Douglas, it was before my watch, but it was on, took a lot of water and dumped it into somebody's property. That landowner sued the town and won, and the town was, I think it was like $10,000 of cost to remediate that situation. That is still the rule. The rule in Massachusetts is you cannot take stormwater, focus it, and then direct it somewhere that's not your property. That's not allowed. And we've got to get Planning Board and Conservation Commission and everybody up to speed with this, that when we look at, for instance, stormwater management practices on a solar field, where we are specifically asking the developer, take all that water and put it into a stormwater management, so-called BMP, which is a retention pond. At some point, that retention pond has a emergency outlet. We're coming up against all those emergency outlets because the water's coming so fast, the ground isn't soaking any of it up. If that pipe goes onto somebody's private property, that's not okay. That plan can't be approved as it stands because you're basically saying, take all that stormwater and dump it onto somebody's property. It may be their leaching field, it may be their basement, that's not all right. In some instances, specifically solar fields, we have been trying to catch up. And so the conditions for development, specifically on the Oak Street solar field, are very specific. You must manage your stormwater on your own property. You can't dump it. Now, what's happened is those measures are not in place, and we have a lot of water flowing down Oak Street and into people's property. That is the town's responsibility, and the town is pursuing very actively a conclusion to that matter. So no building permit will be issued for that field until a developer manages their stormwater properly. We may have some work to do as well, though. So a consulting engineer who's been out there during the rainstorms and shortly thereafter says there may be a water management issue on Oak Street that you need to consider as well. Oak Street is a scenic road, so again, it'll come through the process and may take some time to resolve. Lastly, perhaps the most dramatic videos and photos we've seen since beginning of July involve private property. And so the town's nexus is almost none. We're not shirking our responsibility of passing the buck, but the fact of the matter is, if you have a private road and you have lots being developed on a private road, and someone is not managing the stormwater on their building site and it's coming down to you, that's a private matter that you as private landowners will have to work out. Hopefully you won't litigate, but that's something you need to manage as between you, because we don't even have jurisdiction over the road. It's a private road. The only time it becomes a problem for the town of Douglas is if all that stormwater is picking up a large amount of silt and other potential pollutants and bringing it to a protected body of water, whether that's a wetland or a surface water. At that point, we have a regulatory nexus, but our responsibility isn't to fix the stormwater problem, it's simply to make that pollution or that unacceptable runoff stop going to that protected place. But we can't sort it out as amongst the private property owners. We'll offer our good offices, try to get people to talk to each other and try to referee the conversation and try to get people to be reasonable with each other. But in the end of the day, it's between private people. So I would urge members of the board, if you get complaints, I just gave you some of the default rules, but please forward them to us so we can keep track of what's going on and apply the appropriate set of rules to the situation. Other things I wanted to update you on, we're starting to make a lot of progress on procurements. So the first round of what I'm going to do is issue all the purchasing from the funds that were approved by town meeting for July 1st. Those that I can use a statewide contract, I typically do. I have found that going out to bid for vehicles is an almost pointless exercise. Most of the major vendors in Massachusetts have a state contract, and they have a best value contract price that has been settled. The state buys a lot more than we do, so they do tend to depress the price for items that are bought in quantity. So our sidewalk tractor that was approved, a large snowplow, and the town meeting approval of car 1 for the fire and ambulance department will all be handled with statewide contracts. What I've been waiting for these 3 weeks since July 1st, the vendor must provide us with a copy of the statewide contract. Our contract must refer to that statewide contract explicitly, so you will comply with the terms of VEH, whatever. There's a spreadsheet that usually has a price for a chassis, and then there's a really big spreadsheet that is all the upfits. All the prices for all the upfits are also established by the contract. For auditing purposes, we must make sure that the item we buy, all the pricing matches. The chassis price has to match, all the upfit prices have to match, and any labor has to be appropriately designated and bid out. So that's where we're at, but I think those 3 items are going to be ordered. The lead on the Tahoe for the fire and ambulance department is about 3 months. Sidewalk tractor we might be able to get before the snow flies, and the big snow plow, it may be some time before that comes into service. We might expect that in the middle of the winter, unfortunately. So we may be a little short, because the 2001 had a bad day today. Let's just say that. But we're doing our best to keep up with those procurements. On the building projects, we have a very important meeting with Weston and Sampson tomorrow afternoon, where we will review the bid specs for the roof here in the Municipal Center, as well as some preliminary work around the highway barn. I just want to remind the board, it is now the end of July. Our intention for November town meeting is to have a conceptual design and a financial package for town meeting to consider. It's a very important fall town meeting. So from August, September, and October, we have to pull all of this together. What that means for the engineers is they're just going to keep doing their exploration of the different properties and come back with recommendations. Conceptual design will be building elevation and footprint, not a whole lot of extra detail. On the financial side, we will have to go through the process of having a bond rating call and explaining to our rating agency the financial condition of the town in order to establish what our likely interest rate for our borrowing would be. And hopefully that conceptual design will give us a final cost estimate that we can then use to size the borrowing. Bond rating calls are high-stress events. We are likely to change our bond rating agency on the recommendation of our financial advisor. One of the Moody's in particular has taken a very bearish view of municipal bonds, and our current rating, which is AA3. There are many communities in Massachusetts that have been at AA3 for quite a long time, and Standard & Poor's will look at that same community and give it a AAA bond rating. It's not unusual. So the two bond rating agencies have a significant difference of opinion over the creditworthiness of municipalities based on certain factors. Our job is not to play favorites or take a policy stand on that. Our recommendation to the board and to town meeting will be based on what the lowest cost borrowing would be for the town. So we would seek Standard & Poor's. I may have flipped Moody's and Standard & Poor's, but Standard & Poor's rating of the town. Because we've encountered any number of our sister communities that have both a AA3 and a AAA, depending on who it is that's rated that particular bond issue. Same town, same finances. I think I'll stop there. I think that our next phase of activity around town hall is going to be largely driven by personnel issues. I'm looking to come to the Board of Selectmen with an employee recognition policy and program so that we are acknowledging exceptional service to the town of Douglas in a public and appropriate way to build morale. And we want to get into this beneficial cycle of goal setting, evaluation, and performance rating for salary purposes in advance of the budget season. So if we do goal setting now, we can do reviews around Christmas time that will inform the budget that we put together for January and February. So in the past, we've been spotty. One of the concerns always was there was no room. So we had people at step 10. What are they going to do? There was no place to put them. And I had gone through Labor Council and asked, can I give certain people a contract? Because I'm speaking specifically about department heads. And the answer was, if it's not authorized by statute, you cannot. So we were kind of stuck. So until we did comp reform, we didn't have this opportunity to really give anybody any reward for good service. And now we're in a completely different situation, so we need to put the system in place. I'm happy that town meeting went along with the change. So we have some dedicated help on human relations, human resources. So we I've got some help putting this together, which is good. That's the end of my report, Mr. Chairman, unless any member has questions.
I think we're skipping over this.
Okay.
I can
Thanks,
confirm
Matt.
that with, Matt.
So, what, item B?
Yes,
For
I believe
executive
so.
session?
Yeah.
Are we skipping over B in executive session, Matt?
I might give you a quick update on that one.
Okay. So we'll just leave it there.
It's actually A, I don't have anything on. Unless,
No, we don't have anything
We
until,
don't.
because they're going to walk that site tomorrow.
yeah.
All right, so we'll skip over A, but it's still under the same idea then. All right, are there any open session topics not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance of the meeting?
I'll bring it up now, and I imagine we may go into executive session to talk about this, but you mentioned evaluations, and this board hasn't evaluated you in some time, and I think that's a tremendous breach of our responsibility and the trust that the townspeople have for us to enter into real negotiations, looking at a term of 3 years and almost $500,000 with a bunch of bells and whistles and TA protections. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I read our minutes. The contract technically is not up till June 30, 2024, having extended. So I would ask, what's the rush? And if there is no rush, why can't we methodically put on the calendar in October, November, where you guys, the two new members who are still learning the machinations of town government, to see Matt in action and to not rely on my opinion or the chairman's opinion or Mike's opinion. It's probably, Matt, not what you want to hear, but I just don't see how we can breach this fiduciary trust by just willy-nilly going about it, taking the word of one or two people.
Well, I don't think it's willy-nilly, and I believe on record.
But before you go any further, there is also no reason why this is on this agenda item. There's no way you can make out an argument that you didn't have 48 hours notice of this topic. So if you want to discuss it, put it on the agenda.
All right, let's put it on the
But to bring it up tonight with nobody having an
Well, I was-
opportunity to know you were going to bring it up,
Well, we're going to talk about it in,
yeah, I'm fine with, just for the record, evaluate me all you want, because that is your duty, and that is your responsibility. That's fine. That's not what concerns me. What concerns me is that this agenda item is specifically reserved for emergency matters that the board would not have notice of, that came up within the last 48 hours.
fine, all right, I got your, well, I got it out there, we'll talk about it a little bit more. But we've been going to executive session forever talking about this, and I think in the interest of transparency, the people, the townspeople at least need to know where I stand on it.
I'll reserve comment for executive session, we'll talk about it in there. Seeing as there is no open session topics not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance of the meeting, I would entertain a motion to enter executive session for the purposes of interest in real property, contract negotiations, and I believe that's it.
Specifically, contract negotiations for public, the dispatchers as well as the town administrator.
So, would you care to second it?
Well, in consistency with the Selectmen bonus, there's extra that needs to go with that.
Please feel free.
I just have to think of how Tim goes about it, but,
Let me help you out, Mike.
yep, thank you.
I'll make a motion that we move into executive session for the purposes of Chapter 61 parcels Orange Street and Southeast Main Street for the contract negotiations regarding the public safety dispatchers and for a discussion on the contract negotiations regarding the town administrator, and then we will leave executive session for the sole purpose of adjournment.
Second. Thank you, Tim.
Motion was made and seconded. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Postma, aye.
Fitzpatrick, aye.
Morse, aye.
Bone and I.